The next stage of my thinking is to think about symbolism and what the importance of symbolism really is when we're talking about attempting to do anything really rather weird. In many respects, not all that much, because people get themselves tied up in knots. Is this the right rune for this? Is this the right color for that? Is that the right type of candle for this? And what if I upset someone? Uh, I mean, joking aside, sometimes you can take this stuff to extremes. There's one family I used to know. They were a pagan family, good pagan family, very good pagan family actually, very very good people. But the old guy said at one point that if they did the Beltane festival, the girl playing the Queen of the May would have to be fresh or under 16. Now you can police whether they're under 16, but you can't really police whether they're fresh. I mean, like, that would be like a wrong thing to do while you're saying it. It's just like, it shouldn't even be part of your intellectual discourse on, like, spiritual matters. It just shouldn't be there at all. So you can take stuff too seriously, and you can take your interpretation of what's really going on here. I mean, okay, that particular guy, maybe he's a special case because he had this experience with an entity and it was all really rather frightening, so that's what he said. Again, if I had an experience with an entity like that, I would even question whether that was an entity after the fact, because I would want to get myself back to clarity of thought and rationality so that I can then analyze what I experienced and see whether there will be something useful in having that kind of experience again, and if so, why. That's the important question. Was it really as real as I thought it was? Sometimes, with the passage of time, you get to recognize what a genuine experience could be, and what could be just a product of your body not being very well, some toxicity inside from some bad food you've eaten, numbing some parts of your brain, making you think unpleasant thoughts, or whether it's more to do with some genuine stuff which could potentially be coming from outside. But even then, you still have to question it and maybe find other ways of putting it to the test as to whether there was something interesting, beneficial, or useful there. It's a question of expanding your understanding as a result of experience and going one step further forward. You've only got your knowledge and your experience up to today's date, right? So if you got more interesting experience, then maybe you'd have a bit more understanding as to what it is that's going on here. When you first entered into school, you didn't know anything. When you left school, you knew as much as you can by the time you left school, if you know what I mean, taking into account how much work you actually put in and whether you actually decided to focus on the class and that kind of stuff. But you've only got to where you are now, and I've only got to where I am now, and everybody's only got to where they are now. There's certain levels of knowledge which we all have to get as part of our growing up, either with this subject, written off by weird fucks like him, or by your direct personal experience leading you forward. Okay, so what is the point of the symbols that you use? They're all very interesting and exciting, but getting caught up in this, like, have I used the right color for that? Have I used the right candle for that? What, this is supposed to be a spiritual, experiential, experimental art form. Okay, when I talk about the components of this, I'm thinking about the components of the meditations that you do, the styles of meditation, what the intention of doing them is, how that either opens you up or inflames your aura, depending upon whether you need sensitivity or whether you need yourself to be a transmitter, whether you've done the preparatory exercises well enough for you to develop that sense of slight extra harmony of mind, whether you've done your circle casting for the purposes of reducing any extraneous psychic energy so that you can focus a little bit more on what you're doing, whether when you're in the circle you can actually raise the energy right through your meditation, through your chanting, through your prayer, and whether you need to do it that way or whether you need to do it in an ascended state so that you can therefore attempt to either feel or perceive some other variety of consciousnesses around you and possibly hear some words from them. So the places where I place my analysis is different than, as it were, the more sort of like ritualistic dogmatic point of view. The ritualistic dogmatic point of view says you can't do this at this time of the phase of the moon, you can't do this at that time of the year because of the position of the sun, you can't do it at this time of the year because the astrology isn't right, or something like that. I think that's superstition. I think that those things, the theatre of the seasons, the theatre of the phases of the moon, all these things can be used if you require it. But intellectually speaking, as far as You have to banish things as the moon wanes. Well, if you're getting rid of something from your life, you're also inviting something back into your life anyway, aren't you? All right. If you remove war, you're bringing in peace. So essentially, it's just there for a question of the words that you use, right? Maybe I don't know. This is just me giving you a hypothetical point of view, just from the standpoint of someone who's talking to you. Okay. No one knows anything. I can't iterate to you enough that the more people there are out there who say they've got the answers, the fewer people there are with all the answers. So that's why my approach is bottom up, not top down. Okay, bottom up means that I want to try and experience something. I want to try and think it through. I want to try and work out what that experience tried to teach me, and then to move on to another level of experimentation, bit by bit, with the passage of time. This whole thing seems to be leading up to some variety of combination of almost divine spiritual experience of some varieties that seems to open you up in different ways, and then there's other stuff going on. So the whole process of this path of magical living, or whatever you call it, is part of your growth through these various different stages. So it seems to reach another level of understanding of how yourself interacts with the spiritual world, and then moving on to a time of maybe using moving more mediumistically, or dealing more with different varieties of hypothetical entities out there. But these expanded states, these moments of expanded awareness, I think are what we're supposed to be creating, and I still hold it as true as I can say it is, that it's the prayerful meditative state which is the key to all of this, and therefore the ultimate secret of magic essentially is to learn the state of mind of prayer, and to learn how comfortable you can get in it, and to learn to be able to do your visualizations in that state. Alright, so if you're doing a circle casting, you're doing it in a proper religious way, in a religious state of mind, properly. If you're doing your invocations of deities or whatever, it has to be in a reverent state of mind, and you have to almost speak and treat these things as if they were real when you're in that ritualistic space. When you're out of it, you got to come straight back to normality. Alright, clear-minded thinking, critical thinking, self-critical thinking. Because otherwise the risk of you going insane is very, very high, because you become intoxicated by the idea of magic. I've experienced something strange, I want to share it with the world. Of course you do, but you mustn't. Alright? You can't really share it to other people within the magical world, because they don't know anything either. You certainly can't share it with someone of a religious nature of any type, because they'll just give their own particular religious interpretation of what's really been going on. All of us who are trying to find this stuff genuinely are completely in the dark. And that is quite a frightening prospect. And some of the superstitious fears surrounding occultism have probably come from that. As well as, of course, the cultural wars which goes on between one lot of people who access spirituality one way, and one lot of people who access spirituality another way. We've got to try and stop doing that. What is it about, these arguments about whose God has got the biggest cock? I mean, for crying out loud's sake. We haven't really grown up all that much, have we, as a species? No. We're just basically primitive monkeys with iPhones. Which is a shame, but never mind. Anyway, I'll speak to you soon with some more ramblings from the depths of Nick Dutch's mind. Here we go.